single time.
Rusty.
I am a little rusty, huh? Welcome back to Aggressively Healthy. I mean, it's been, we filmed last week. Did we? Yeah, I think we did.
No, you weren't home yet.
Oh, shoot, I wasn't back. That's right. This is our first week back.
It's like a month.
I was in Florida, which is an interesting place. Actually, hot topic.
3 weeks.
So Florida is very advanced in terms of their, I believe, mission statement on like, oh, how do we progress to healthcare? Now, it's funny watching the transition because in the Northeast right now, there's a big push. And it seems like the big push is going towards like metabolic wellness at a first drive. And then these, gyms are opening up more and there's a lot more facilities to kind of experience it. But down there, the entire push is purely aesthetic. Do you think, because in the gym environment, the first thing people come in here probably 90% of the time is they say, I want to change how I look. What do you think about that balance? Like Florida seems very progressive, but it's purely skin deep. They're not really metabolically healthy. Up here, we're doing a little more metabolic thing. Like how do we get all of these people to kind of just say, hey, if you're healthy on the inside and the outside, that's the best bet. Like, but why can't we keep these people together rather than fighting?
Part of it is that people want to be either polite or maybe politically correct rather than be honest their first show. So when people come in, it's less about, at least up here, it's less about, hey, I want to look a certain way. It's like, I want to get healthy.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about this before, I have no idea what that means. Please tell me. And if healthy to you is losing 20 pounds, you're probably right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is it fixing your lipid panel or your blood sugar? Yep. Sure. But that's probably a byproduct of losing weight too. And I think there has been such an odd like shaming of wanting just to look good, like it is just superficial, when we know that acquiring muscle mass is probably one of the best pieces to secure longevity that you could pursue
ever.
Right. And like that will get you toned, that will get you lean, that will get you to look the way that you want. And it's also incredibly powerful in all other health metrics. So it is more along the lines that people don't want to come across as superficial when they want to look better, when that's probably the number one thing. And not to mention, if that's what's going to motivate you to get up and train and follow a nutrition plan, then all the best to you. That's fantastic.
It is fantastic. And I have to say, whether or not it's superficial, like you said, or not, when you go to an environment like that down there, say Florida, I'm not saying it's the best state on the planet, whatever. I'm just saying that's where we were. It was sunny. People are always outside.
Yeah.
So I think by default, not being in a closed space with a ceiling above you, I really do. I'm starting to get weird. Like, I guess the more shit I think about as I get older. But if you spend your entire day in a room with a roof and a ceiling and a chair, you don't really feel like proud. You know what I mean? When you're outside and you look up to the sky, you're like, whoa, I might be able to get all the way up there. Or you start to not see ceilings as stopping points. And I think that's one of the problems up here because all winter long, we're stuck inside. Down there, the option is to get outside. What do you think is a good way to balance that? Like if you're a Northeasterner, do you get the winter blues ever?
Big time.
And what do you do? Because I tend to really panic in the winter. I don't like it. I need to be outside. But people always ask, like, how do you get rid of it? Any kind of advice for that?
I think getting away is key. Like, we just got back from spring break as well.
Yep.
And it's insane how much the change of environment, specifically the change of weather and actually having sun, like for me personally, I don't think there is a substitute.
Nope.
And it just makes me reinforce the idea that we should do that more regularly, especially when, this year was kind of like an old school winter for the Northeast where it was cold and snowy and dark and it felt like it was forever. And for me personally now, because we've had a couple good winters the last couple years where it didn't feel as harsh.
Yep.
It does affect your mood. It does affect your disposition and your mindset and all that stuff. It's really important. So I think, first of all, you always have to acknowledge something going on, properly identify it, and then do something about it.
Yeah. Take action.
Yeah.
So we put up a post about muscle mass and we did a whole conversation on like, hey, the more muscle you have, the better, right? And that is a fact, okay? More muscle is almost always, except for a very, 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 very small percentage,
And
which
we'll talk about that.
isn't usually related to actual skeletal muscle mass, it's always an advantage. So the comment was as follows. Too much muscle mass and blood pressure, and that could be unhealthy, and don't tell women just to get big, bulky muscles. Now, this person is in the healthcare arena, and I call it the healthcare arena because they're I think PT or a trainer.
They're at least a trainer.
Yeah, so they work with humans. They work with women because clearly that's their take on it, that more muscle mass does not make you more healthy. I don't really know where to start. If you have a starting point on this conversation, I can't really reason with the statement, if that makes sense. I'm pretty good at empathizing. I'm not saying my IQ disallows me to understand something that he said, but I can't understand it. I don't understand where you can even open your mouth and say that more muscle isn't better. So let's start with just that foundational proof.
Yeah. So the way that I took it, and this is just my interpretation of where he was coming from, is that he interpreted what I was saying as trying to force everyone to be a bodybuilder.
Right.
And in his mind, bodybuilding at extreme lengths is not healthy.
Right.
And I would agree with that. However, to get there, and this is where people's ignorance really shows up, it's that you have no idea what it takes to be a top-level bodybuilder, male or female. We're talking decades of discipline and dedication and hard work and food and anabolics and all this other stuff. It takes so long to push the reasonable amount or unreasonable amount of muscle mass on your genetic limit where it becomes unhealthy or detrimental.
Right.
And it's not even really the muscle mass, it's how you got there. It's the extreme dieting, the extreme caloric surpluses, the extreme drug use. It's all that stuff that's probably more or less or healthy than just having a lot of muscle mass.
Yeah, I don't think it's related to the muscle mass at all. And it's kind of the chicken or the egg. Like some people are like, well, the more muscle mass, the cardiac problems, and they all get kidney disease. Well, it's not actually the muscle mass. It's not actually the heart
or the high protein
responding to the muscle mass. It's the other stimulants that then cause that problem. But in women's health, I do believe it is actually dangerous to even make that statement.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's hard enough to convince a woman to bodybuild, meaning like take your body and build it. Most women are stuck in a breakdown mentality. I need to be thinner. I need to be thinner. So the minute you tell them that bodybuilding extreme is bad, well, then they're not going to do it. So I would ask that person or these people don't really express that statement without truly thinking about the detrimental effects down the road. How do we convince women, right? In this gym, we have a community of women that like love lifting. Makes my day. Every morning we walk in here, there's 20 women just lifting weights. They all love it, and they're all very healthy. How do we continue to prove to women, like, you can't listen to these extremists about these muscle things? An anabolic build is very important. So let's take that bodybuilding definition, I think, and how do we rearrange it into like bodybuilding actually being what we want to do?
This is I found to be one of the best exercises for clients when they're really having a tough time figuring out clarity on their goal. And I say, okay, we want to get healthy and we want to lose weight or whatever. It's like, do you have a picture of someone that you really appreciate of their physique?
Yep.
And we all have it, scrolling through Instagram, you see this guy, you see this athlete, you see whatever. And I was like, just send me a picture of what you like.
Marcus,
what
guess who's on my wall?
Mike.
Oh, I thought
sorry.
it was Marcus.
Sorry, go ahead.
But like then I asked them to send me a picture of it. And they'll send me someone that is, guess what? Just more muscular than them.
Yeah.
So whatever terminology they give me, lean, tone, long, slim, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you just want muscle. You really do. Now, again, like it is so hard. Like I've been trying to put on muscle for 30 freaking years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not going to turn into Ronnie Coleman in the next 3-month phase.
Or you might be Ronnie Ranfone. Nickname Ron.
Randy Coleman.
Randy Coleman. Yeah, it's messed up though. Like it's such a weird societal burden that we've like placed on women.
Yeah.
And I don't really get it, because if you think about it, and I'm not trying to get like weird and like emotional here, but like men are getting infertile. Like, you're losing your sperm count. It is what it is. It's the data. And we're starting to like force women to go to work more, which then delays their onset of childbearing, which then like delays kind of that introduction into when they can focus on their own health. Because really, we burden them, work. Then they have kids, take care of the kids, balance work, balance the kids. That's all catabolic.
Yeah.
So like a female spends from day 0 with good nutrition and health, hopefully as a pediatric human, until they get to probably like 25 or 30 in a relatively anabolic. And then from 30 on, it's all breakdown. So how do we convince these people that the breakdown is actually represented symptomatically by loss of muscle? So when you walk into our office, our healthcare facility, and you're losing muscle over time, you're dying. The equivalent would be going into a cardiologist's office and they're like, you have preventricular contractions, or you have Wolff Parkinson White, it's an irregular beat. You know what we're gonna do? Fuck it, let's watch it. Let's see what happens, and if your heart stops, I don't know, like, we did what we could do. Would you say that about someone's heart? Why do we say that about the entire human? The entire female, we take her and we put them in a category at menopause and say, well, there's nothing we can do.
Well, let me ask you this. Going through medical school, when did they teach you about the muscular system?
Anatomy with zero functionality. It's purely like
But
attachment.
It's early on, right?
Like, yeah, day 1.
Or year 1, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And then they teach you origin, insertion,
That's
function,
it.
right?
That's it.
And then year 7, is anything ever integrated from the muscular system?
No, nothing.
Right. So, but I'm assuming I didn't.
Heaviest part of your body, by the way.
Well, I think this is the fundamental disconnect. It's like, how many times do they circle back, no pun intended, to the heart?
Yeah.
A lot, right? Because it's a premier organ of consideration. They have not placed that same emphasis on the fundamental education of the muscular system, right? So it is literally just a meat suit in medical school.
Yep.
It has no bearing on your hormones,
Nope.
your metabolic system.
Not in med school.
Brain health, but that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like, no wonder why there's such a disconnect in the practice of medicine as it pertains to these afflictions and how it tracks back to the muscular system.
But think about this. Pathologically, if you walk in with a elevated heart rate and a fever, what does the doctor think? You're sick. When you exercise, if a bacteria or virus can cause that to happen in your body, when you go exercise and your muscles contract, your heart increases its pump, your blood pressure goes up, and you increase core body temp. Same fucking symptoms.
Yeah.
So why do we treat them like one is not a pathologic response and one is? They're the same, right?
Yeah.
The next thing I have to say is, if we look at the earth, for instance, we are mostly water. How long have we been paying attention to our oceans? Not very long. And then when we started paying attention, what did we realize? Holy shit, we're ruining them. But now we really need to pay attention. Why? Because it's all of our water. Pretend your muscles are the water and pretend the land is your bones, right? If you don't take care of that water, which is the largest overwhelming source of nutrition, food, everything on this planet comes from water. Everything. You don't grow shit on land if you don't have water. Everything revolves around water, and that's our muscles. And I think we're missing it. The more I'm getting into this metabolic medicine, the more I'm starting to see like the pharmacology world trapped medicine in a pathologic system related to symptoms and disease response. It was a total distraction from health maintenance. I believe muscles are the key. And the initiation of this push was probably because a you and an I met. The I felt way smarter and way more empowered to not do business with the you. So how can I separate myself? Well, I can trap my marketing and my clients to a drug addiction. It's way easier for me to trap a drug addicted patient than for you to trap a muscle bound drug addict from the muscle release of endorphins, right? That's an easy play, marketing. The hospitals did it perfectly. How can we reverse that as well? Because we need to start to tell people like the foundation of health is here. It is lifting, it is exercising, and it's all relative to metabolism, which we're going to talk about soon. If you want to talk about energy demands, what piece of your body builds and destroys energy at the same time? Your muscles.
Yep, muscle mass.
Thermodynamics is happening in the opposite of what it has been described as. You will store glycogen, you will use it, you will have an insulin response and a glucagon response, and those are not black and white. The medical school books, the biochem books, they have to make it black and white. Otherwise, the teacher will sound like an idiot, right? So you have to make it somewhat binary. Metabolism is our key. Muscles equal metabolism. What's your definition? I know this is real open-ended. Actually, Marcus, grab the mic for a second.
What's up?
As a layman in healthcare, what would you say your definition of metabolism is?
The way that your body breaks down food and distributes it as energy.
Like
It's
it?
fantastic.
I like that. So that's a very good start. Let's talk about metabolism. I'm going to give you the floor, Mike. So start with what you think metabolism is at a macro level, and then let's whittle our way down.
I mean, Marcus wasn't that far off. I think it's the aggregate of all biochemical processes that are relating to the consumption, utilization, and breakdown of energy.
Yep. And I would say this. The interesting thing is there can be anabolic and catabolic, right?
Yeah.
So our whole goal in the human body, which is crazy to me, and this is where that whole thermodynamics thing comes in. You need to eat raw materials. You need to break those down. You're using energy that was stored to do that, even to get to the point where then you can use the molecules you're breaking down. So you've already wasted energy. Now you need to take some of that resultant chemical, store it for the next round, use it actively, and while this is all happening, try to go build muscle, bone, and brain, right, as a kid.
Yeah.
So there's crazy things happening. Metabolism, though, is muscular. It is all muscular driven. So much so to the point that stagnation, if you sit in a bed and don't move, you lose everything, right? Over the course of months, years, whatever. It doesn't happen too fast, but it happens. So how do we get people to embrace metabolism as something that like they can change? Because the world of endocrinology, the PhDs out there in the medical schools, were always telling us metabolism doesn't change. Women, and I'm going to look you dead in the eye, your doctors that tell you metabolism doesn't change are lying. Metabolism changes every single minute. So how do we invoke this feeling of like, I have control over my metabolism, not just health, but metabolism? Because I think that's our big push.
The old saying, start at the finish, is something that I would use in a situation where people are a little bit confused about how all this would make sense to them.
Yep.
Whether it's their goal of achievement or the goal of staying away from something they fear. So let's say the aging process. Like, what are you most concerned about getting old? And some people might say, I don't want to lose my functionality or my independence, right? Cool. So that's a matter of muscle mass that will equip you to function and get through day-to-day stuff, still go grocery shopping and play with your grandkids. And that's muscle mass. It's like, okay, well, diabetes runs in my family. Okay, are you type 1? No. Type 2? Well, that is actually a muscle mass fix too.
Yeah.
Right? The way that your body actually processes and breakdowns
Right.
Glucose, right? Let's call it a cognitive decline. Okay, one of the best things for brain health we've discovered is physical activity. Again, it's about maybe not necessarily building more muscle, but making sure that the muscle that you have doesn't go away, right? So a lot of the things that people are afraid of in the long term and desire in the short term can be tracked back to the question of, do we have enough muscle mass to do the things and be the things that we want to be?
Right.
So that's where I kind of like put it down or create put it in the vernacular for people to understand like why we have such a muscle centric approach. And then that's why our nutritional support looks very much like a protein heavy diet.
Yep.
And why we put such an emphasis on carbohydrates. So all this stuff now runs congruent with why we want to do the things that we want to do in the context of what you want to achieve.
Yeah. And it's also a funny thing, like the medical world always blames the illness on the outcome of the surgical intervention, even if it's acute. right? Like as a surgeon, I used to always say like, oh, that patient was so sick. It was like, that was going to be impossible. What we're trying to do is prepare you, which I think makes sense. If you can't logically understand that, like the healthier you are going into any illness, the better the outcome will be. And I am convinced, no matter what you tell me, the amount of muscle mass you walk into a hospital with and the amount of muscle mass you walk out with will determine your outcome. And I would beg one of these hospitals to do a DEXA scan on every single patient that walks in your front door, and then do a DEXA on every single patient that walks out, dead or alive. And let's start to see the data. Are these people coming in with a lot of muscle? Are they coming in well prepared? Are they coming in with fatty liver disease? Because if you did a DEXA scan, you did a fasting insulin, you gave me a total protein and albumin, and you then told me the surgery being performed on a patient, I could probably, with pretty high accuracy, tell you how that operation is going to go. How many times do you think those levels are checked in a preoperative patient in the hospital?
Never.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. In the textbook, growing up as a doctor, albumin was the number one indicator of preoperative risk factors for any operative intervention. How many times do you think a preoperative albumin or pre-albumin, whatever they want to be fancy, someone's going to comment, oh, pre-albumin. It's actually albumin. But how often do you need to check that? And how often do you think those are checked preoperatively? Zero. You know why? Because if you did, how many operations do you think would occur?
A lot less.
Zero, right? None. So you're a 280-pound diabetic and you need your knees replaced because they're arthritic. You think the knees are the only problem in that person's body?
Yeah.
All right. Muscles. Let's get back to muscles. So those people with more musculature will live longer. I think muscles are the most important organ in the body. The heart is a
muscle,
and the calves are your
secondary heart.
Right. So if we think like that, our whole body has to be that, right? What is the first approach? They walk in here and they want to lose weight. But you know they need to build muscle. Mm-hmm. What's that psychological discussion like?
I'm going to differentiate weight loss versus fat loss, because weight loss is no matter what your dietary approach is, it's just got to be less food than what you're eating, or less food than what your basal metabolic rate is, yep. Right? And it doesn't matter if you just eat all fat, all protein, all sugar, you will lose weight as long as that number discrepancy exists between calories in and calories out. Now, fat loss is one level up where we have to be, yes, in a caloric deficit relative to that person's caloric expenditure, but we now need a higher level of certain composition of protein, carbs, and fat to not only preserve muscle, but hopefully build muscle in a fat loss period.
Yep.
Right? And now, if what they're trying to do is literally build muscle, it's going to be way easier if they have less fat mass. No different than as soon as someone explores the idea of TRT and they have a tremendous amount of adipose tissue, the goal is to get them in the best shape possible so they respond better to the medical intervention that you want to provide for them, right?
Yep.
So a lot of this then, again, like we're talking about the reduction of adipose tissue, visceral fat, and the enhancement or at least the preservation of muscle mass in their current form. That's it. And then once those things are achieved and they get down to a relatively healthy body weight, their composition will improve just by that. So if we don't lose skeletal muscle mass, we lose adipose tissue, body fat or body composition becomes greatly enhanced. And then we can really look at focusing and marshaling the resources to building more muscle because the body will respond better that way.
Yeah. And the cool thing is this. It sounds so simplistic, but I'll reveal the big mystery. Mike builds the muscle. I give your muscles the right chemicals to use, and you know what ends up happening? You thrive.
Yeah.
Diabetics turn non-diabetic. Osteoporotics turn non-osteoporotic. Osteopenics, their bones become denser than dense. Amazingly, non-alcoholic or fatty liver disease out there in the wild world in the hospital, I used to think was irreversible and eventually was going to lead to a transplant. And I'm not kidding. That was the statement If you have fatty liver disease, it's the number one thing that's going to probably get you a transplant. So if a patient came in with fatty liver disease, we would tell them, we're going to try our best to treat this. We're going to protect the rest of your body. Please eat better and exercise. And let's hope this goes away. But it's very difficult to reverse. We don't have a cure. They used to say that out loud. I heard it by a transplant doctor. I didn't realize at the time it was garbage, right? I didn't realize he was just lying. But at the end of the day, I have not yet, not a single one has walked in here with fatty liver disease, DEXA scan driven, known fatty liver disease, and it hasn't reversed. Every single one. The only ones that haven't are the cirrhotics. So if there is liver scarring, there may be some residual irritation, even better managed. But fatty liver disease is avoidable. You know how it's avoidable? Muscle mass, hormone replacement, metabolic adjustments. Now, if I'm chemically adjusting metabolisms, in your mind, what are you doing physically with them? Because you're technically adjusting them from a more physical standpoint, and I'm technically adjusting them for a more chemical. But together, we get big changes. Yeah. What are enhancements you see in terms of training styles to like get somebody's metabolism to respond to you? How do you play with it physically? And then how do you encounter it even from a caloric intake? I know this is a really broad question. You could break it down into pieces. But how do we address that, and how do we kind of play that game with these people?
The interesting thing is that whether a person's coming in with a relatively low level of fitness, meaning they have not trained in a long time or maybe ever,
yep,
or someone who's coming in from, let's say just casual gym goer, commercial gym, they rent space at a commercial gym 3 times a week.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that muscles are super responsive.
Yeah.
They only know really one thing, and that's like, give me stress and I will respond.
Yeah.
So they're dumb in that way, but they're really good at that one thing.
Yep.
So if you provide the correct stimulus and the frequency is there and the intensity is there, it's almost by default that muscle will grow, because biologically, when you encounter a stress that you're not really equipped to handle,
right,
the body realizes that and says, holy shit, we have to get better. The first process is neurological. So you actually get, let's just call it efficiency.
Yep.
You increase your ability, the skill of movement under load. And then at some point, the body realizes to make this easier, it would be way better if we had more muscle in that particular area that's under stress. So biologically, it says, let's lay down some new tissue. So collagen deposition, and then the body realizes it needs more proteins and more carbohydrates to do the job. And then you start to actually build muscle, which is a slow process. But if you're new, it happens faster.
Yeah.
So those guys and women really get that in that first 6 weeks, they can't believe how much their body changes. And that also psychologically is reaffirming at the highest level of the positive reinforcement that is happening almost weekly.
Yep.
The scale's going down, their performance numbers are going up, they're eating food that they didn't think they should eat. Yep. So all of that is a reminder that they're on the right path, right? And that also encourages adherence.
I mean, I have a squirrel brain of touch. You just said like 8 million things I want to rip off on.
Yeah.
One of them being eat more. Talk to me. The women of the world, as we started this whole thing, and I know we talk about women a lot because I feel so irritated for the women of the world at what the medical profession's done that I can't stop talking about it. But one of the things is food intake, and we have always beaten women into this corner of like caloric deficit. At the start of every encounter I have with all of the females I meet with, I always say, by the end of this, you're probably going to leave here. I'm going to tell you to eat more. I'm going to tell you to eat more fat. I'm going to tell you to eat more carbs. And I'm going to tell you to eat more protein. The difference is it's all going to be the right stuff. How do we flip that mentality into that muscle build, the bone build? Because if you want to think about environment and you become your environment, right? So macroscopically, me and you go drop ourselves in a bar. We don't drink right now. We don't even really think about it. But if you leave me in a bar for a year and I'm around a bunch of people drinking and it looks like they're having a good time, I might be like, fuck, I don't know. The rest of the world I haven't seen in a year, I'm going to start drinking again. Imagine being a muscle cell and you're just surrounded in fat. What do you think that muscle cell is doing on a microscopic level? Truly, it's more of a pain in the ass to expand.
It's struggling.
It's struggling. It's fucking like, ugh, every day this is so fucking heavy. I'm so tired. That's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
And then it fucking gives up, right? So how do we transition these women into muscle build, caloric intake, and anabolic stimulation instead of being catabolic from 30 on? How do we tell them, like, from 30 on, you should shoot for the moon? Because I am convinced, and this will be the most crazy thing I say, I think our cells were designed to live forever. There's actually no programmable death. They say there is. The programmable death happens with external stressors. There's no other way around it, right? Otherwise, we would just die. Like, if a cell was built to die, it would just die. So what's the trend? How do we change this? How do we get women to believe in what we're telling them, that the muscle mass, the anabolic metabolism, and that building phase is going to help them?
The easiest way that I would position it in like a consult is like, well, what are you doing right now that's going to get you to where you want to be?
Yeah.
Because the only reason why you're here is you're seeking change, you desire change, and you want something different than what you have.
Yeah.
So that means that like what you're doing isn't in support of what you actually want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the daily habits and the behaviors, and maybe it's just a matter of knowledge and understanding. Because let's also be honest, most people really don't have a great understanding of how their body works and all the processes that we have to explore to leverage the right decisions for that individual. And again, like we're not trying to overload anyone on the science and stuff, but there has to be some exchange of trust.
Yeah.
And that is making sure that like what we're doing is in alignment with what they envision themselves and how their lives are going to play out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and help them get to that result.
Yeah.
A little bit of my Instagram feed, I every so often get people that are like, oh, why are you so irritated with the medical system? It's like a tattletale kind of thing. And I always complain about people complaining about external forces. But the reason I feel completely justified is women, I don't think, ever attacked the medical system, right? Like, I don't think women mounted up and went up to a bunch of the doctors and said, we're going to ruin your life. But unfortunately, a bunch of doctors in their specialty got together and agreed upon a final conclusion that ruined a lot of women's lives. And they still haven't apologized for it.
Shocker.
So no, I don't feel like a tattletale. And no, I don't feel like I'm a problem complaining about the hospital system because I lived it. I didn't aggressively attack it. I just wanted something out of it, knowledge-based. And it was like fighting in the worst environment you have to be in. Horrific humans as mentors. All they want is a power struggle, and you got to kowtow. Imagine me sitting in a room with a guy that if we were like teenagers and they said the things they had said to me just relative to life, being two humans, there's a potential me and that person would end up, one of us not walking out of the room in full shape. That's how toxic it is. How do we make that environment different, right? Because people think I'm this crazy, angry, like I'm yelling. When the women and the clients come here, I love my clients. Like, that's what we fight for. So we're fighting this battle against this bigger force called, I believe, sick care. Aside from this, I have a couple random topics I'd like to bring up. Single sport youth sports. And it's becoming completely overwhelming in both the male and female arena. Where do you take it from a training perspective, right? Like, it's one thing just to me be like, well, one sport is bad. It's another thing for some random parent to be like, I think you should be well-rounded. Let's talk science.
Yeah.
How good is it for somebody to be well-rounded physically in terms of movement capacity, neurologic stim, and all other external inputs in one sort of sport arena versus multiples?
Almost undeniably, you can say that, especially the younger the person is, the more sports they're exposed to, the better it is for their long-term athletic development. I don't think there's been any legitimate research out there that proves otherwise. Now, there are outliers. You know, you can take Tiger Woods for an example, that he really didn't play any other sports. He started when he was 2, But how many Tiger Woods are there? One. You know what I mean? So like if that's what you're going to base your rationale on how to develop your kid, good luck.
Yeah.
It's not that it can't happen, but like if you're a betting person, you want to look at probability, it's probably not the best way to go about doing things. The other thing that I would always liken it to, because I used to work with a lot of youth athletes, in my earlier days, is that you don't teach your kids certain things in like an academic arena, they lose the ability to really absorb and adapt to that material. Like if you don't teach your kid how to read by a certain age, it'll be very difficult for that person to be able to read or learn language.
Right.
So it's called critical periods of development, right? And if you liken that to how the body goes through planes of motion and understands gravity and kinesthetic awareness, if you don't always have some kind of stimulation, especially when they're earlier development, they just are capped at what they can do later on in life.
Yeah.
The whole idea of early specialization is more from, like we talk about, from the other side of the business that is trying to get you to consume their business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and when we were growing up, the business of youth sports really wasn't a thing.
Nope.
The only thing that I can think of really that was kind of in play was AAU basketball and maybe some travel baseball, but that wasn't, I don't think either of those were year round, nor did anyone really believe that year round was a thing. Because everyone at least played two sports. Like I can't think of one person off the top of my head that didn't at least play two sports.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like football, contact, it would always be like, all right, there's a seasonal sport. You need the season off.
Yeah.
Does everyone realize like every sport you play is some pretty significant contact? Yeah. Like sprinting, the force on your foot when you sprint, I believe is like 40 times gravity or something stupid. I don't know the actual numbers. So I had a recent issue. This is a little personal, Graham. A recent issue with a local club team in a sport. I have a child who plays, and I believe she could easily be developed to have fun and get better. I do not think she's going to be a pro athlete. That's not why I'm here. And I know she wasn't on their elite team, right? Not their Premier One team. But if you're going to offer me a 2 and a 3, and you are the club, meaning you're the specialist, right? Like me, I would be a medical specialist. I can take anyone that looks like you and is healthy like you, and I could fucking put you on TV. Easy. You're an easy car to take care of. You know why? Because you do everything you need to do. I don't really have to do much for you. Anybody can do that. So with these club sports, the good kids, anybody can coach them. But if you're the expert, I challenge you, youth sports. If you're going to make it available to the consumer and you're going to have a level 2, a level 3 developmental program, then develop them. And part of that is show me your skill set. Take your worst player and make them better. Take your middle rung player, make them the best. Take your best player who doesn't have really good leadership skills and make them a good human. That's what we need to do. And it bothers me because I said to these people, and in no separate terms, if you came to me for healthcare and you're sick and dying, and I treated you like you treat the third level kid on this team, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a bullet in your fucking head because I would just kill you. You're a waste of my time. Like you get rid of the lower talent that you don't feel is worth developing. That arena, I believe, transitions into adult life. And the more we keep pushing this like stratification of talent and you're only the best, so that's elite, like I want to develop everybody. When you walk in our arena, RTS, you're not a tiered human. You could walk in here bodybuilder or you could walk in here homeless on the street. And I'll guarantee you, we're going to develop you if you want the development. I think the youth sports movement is good. I don't mind it. But it's kind of like healthcare. We could fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't make those good environments, multiple sports, if they don't start embracing other sport activities, you're stripping the children of a huge experience. And I'm full circling back to a comment you made a while ago. Neurologic stimulation to muscles is a huge deal. So if you're a well-rounded neurostim, your injury risk probably goes down a lot. Talk to me about the nervous input, because everybody thinks the physicality of moving. So if I'm a straightforward sagittal plane runner, my injury laterally would be because I'm so used to running forward. Talk about neural input and maybe the nervous system, neurovascular system, and the endocrine/neural system working together in transition to those injuries as well.
Yeah. I mean, so the nervous system, listen, I'm not, a PhD, MD, whatever, but what we know about the nervous system is that it's always trying to learn and it always picks up on things. That's what's called like afferent information. So like you think of your senses, your eyes, your ears, vibration. So vibration, which is probably the first actual afferent input that your body comes across, is in the womb. And that's the basis of hearing. So, but that's also stimulative because vibration is felt in movement, in sporting environments and lifting, and it's just the transmission of forces external to your body, right? So when we're thinking about like proper neurostim, it is a matter of like, what is the response? Because your body will, or your nervous system then tries to adapt to something that it comes across often.
Right.
Whether it's the frequency, the intensity, the volume.
Yep.
Again, these are all lifting terms, but it makes sense when you think about the nervous system. We also know, like we talked about, like your nervous system is the first thing that really responds to external stimulus. What happens next is based on the type of input. So when we're thinking about vision or hearing or language's vibration, right? Talking. But when we're talking about the musculoskeletal system, think of all the things that force transmission encounters, whether it's your soft tissue, all the little kind of like neurosatellites that pick up like the GTOs and the muscle spindles and all those other little sensory organs in your body that try to interpret and then respond adequately to that stimulation. So I don't know if that's the exact line of reasoning that you were looking for.
No,
but
it is.
But like all of it tracks back to the nervous system because essentially the target organ of your nervous system is your brain.
Yes. And
right? Like it all comes back to that.
And what runs it is your brain. Hold on to that thought. Take it. I just recently had a close friend, unfortunately, lose a brother. The brother was in his later 40s, had a massive widowmaker heart attack, dead in the morning. I do believe potentially lifestyle, post-work, say, / relaxation habits might play a role. I don't know. I don't presume. My question is, how do we avoid that? Because back to the neurostim, your brain is always asking for some response. It is a narcissistic, egomaniacal drug addict. If you can organically give it that, it's satisfied. If you can't, you're going to go looking for more. Why does a stressful day lead to drinking, smoking, and staying up late? Imagine if a stressful day we had everyone trained turned into lifting, exercise, running, maybe going to a town green and like jogging around with a bunch of people. I don't know. But all the things I thought weren't cool as a kid, I think we need to bring into play, right? Community shit, environmental stuff, we got to do it. It's the neurostim. I think it all comes down to that. I think your muscles, I think your visual input, I think your sensory inputs, and your brain. So when I see somebody with a really unhealthy body, their brain's living in that shit. What do you think their brain feels like?
Well,
imagine soaking in high cholesterol, low hormones, excess carbs that you can't use. Like imagine swimming in an ocean full of oil. What ends up happening to birds in an ocean full of oil? They die.
Yeah.
Same shit happens in your body. The oil you pour on the table that you drink, it's in your body. How do we get people to start to embrace like all of the health movement, neurostim? Because I think RTS Health and I think RTS started by you, which this transition to this like health facility. I mean, you're the founder of a groundbreaking health facility. And our mission statement is to get you to embrace all of it. How do we really transfer that? How do we get doctors to buy in? How do we get people to really embrace it as much as they can? Because I think it's the brain. and the muscles. And once you get the brain and the muscles equal, sky's the limit.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. So let's just take an orthopedic issue. Like my shoulder hurts, and I go in and a garden variety orthopod or PA sees me and says, "Hey, take these painkillers," and I don't have the knowledge to ask, "Well, does that fix my shoulder?"
Right?
Does it? As a doctor, does painkillers fix my shoulder?
No.
It just makes me not think about my shoulder. So it buys me time, and I just kick the can down the road, so to speak.
Yep.
My brain doesn't realize that there's pain. Like the pain that should be picked up and tell me and inform me something's wrong is now gone. That signal is gone.
Yep.
So if you look at, if I continue to do whatever I do, that shoulder can only get worse. And the brain then has to go to threshold of being like, your shoulder is so bad, we're not going to let you move it.
Yep.
And then it becomes so dysfunctional that maybe I have to get a shoulder replacement or whatever else. You take that same parallel example of someone who's overweight, out of shape, not healthy with his relationship with food and stress and work. And like, there has to be a consequence of the brain.
Yep.
And maybe that comes through with the psychological interpretation of life sucks.
Yep.
Or I should drink, or I kind of want to numb the pain or forget about my problems, or like, so you just keep kicking the can down the road. And then you wake up with this this huge amount of health or sickness that now you can't avoid it.
Yep.
And you have to deal with it, but you have limited options.
And that snowballs.
Yeah.
One of those, now you're a little weaker. One of those, now you're a little weaker. And now your neurostim to go exercise goes down. You're not as healthy. The more you get punched, the harder the punches hurt.
Well, just from a nutrition perspective that you can talk about, it's like if your brain runs on glucose.
Yep.
And you're an extreme diabetic, like what is your brain functioning like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we have the WAVI, we have brain scans, we have like, at some point, what is the deleterious effects on your brain functioning or cognitive ability? It can't be better.
No, there's no way.
So what happens?
Yep. You decline.
Right.
Now, the funny thing is this, like, if you really do analyze the recommendations of like the medical community for things like this, it is all procrastination. Right? The sick care system is just a version of procrastination. Like, oh, you have a cold? Here's a thing just to get you through this cold. Never addressing root cause. But here's my thing. Recently in politics, there's been huge underfunding to NIH and underfunding to all this shit. My question for the population is this. Before we start begging and crying about funding, how about we all agree to one thing? Eat well, exercise, and don't kill each other. I don't know. Maybe we start there. And then if we need the extra help, no problem. But the equivalent is like a bike and you buy 5,000 sets of training wheels and the actual bike itself is just rotting. The last thing I want to ask somebody is this. When you drive through neighborhoods, as homes get increasingly well built, the aesthetic of them looks nicer, the yards look nicer, the houses get bigger, they get fancier. What do you think in terms of your respect for the person living inside the house? You start to give them a little more because you're like, that person's got their shit together. When you're a giant, obese, overweight, sweating mess, especially if you're a doctor, you should be ashamed. Truly. You're the house that nobody takes care of. You're the house with everything shit on the front porch, the lawn's overgrown, the fence is half down, there's a dog barking in the back, and it says, beware of dog. You know why? Because if you ask that house the wrong question, they're going to snap, just like an overworked, overweight doctor. And that's who you're encountering every day. They're as sick as you. So until the medical profession, the doctors, embrace leadership as a healthcare professional, I don't think there's much of a hope. But that's what we're doing. So anybody out there, doctor, PT, exercise physiology, whatever you can do, we would love the encounter. We want to spread the word, but that's where we got to start. What's the mission statement truly that we want to accomplish? And we'll leave our audience with that.
there is an underpinning of personal responsibility that has kind of popped up through this conversation. And like the first thing to personal responsibility is actually taking the ownership.
Yep.
And also maybe knowing the shortcomings of what you can do on your own.
Right.
Right. Like, so it is really easy. Like the whole idea of like, hey, you're not in a good place health wise, or you're overweight, do more, eat less. That is, for the most part, right.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't give them really anything to act
Yeah.
on. So, and then what do? They maybe, if they take that advice because they really want it, they go Google something, and then they go find influencers on Instagram. And,
Yep.
and then now it's just a matter of information overload. I don't know what's right for me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this stuff.
Right.
So I think part of the personal responsibility is owning up to your shortcomings,
Yes.
and then having enough confidence that asking for help
Yeah.
is the right next step.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, if we can just transparently say that we're here to help,
Yeah.
and that's why we give consultations for free. Like we don't charge people
No.
for their time because we might not be the right ones.
Yep.
But I'd like to say that we will at least give you directionality on what to do, whether that's with us or not.
And I'm going to tell you, people, what feels really good, you've been probably experiencing this more than me, but over the past 6 years, I've felt more empowered with it. And recently I feel like really good about it. Like, if you live what you say and you're trying your hardest, any shortcoming you don't really feel bad about because you're really giving it everything you got. And that's what we're doing. People think like we're edited, whatever. My Instagram feed, our YouTube, everything we do is us. And the reason I'm not shy about showing maybe emotional lability here and there on topics that get me fired up is because this is who I am.
Right.
That's me. I value my opinion. And why do I ask the CEOs of hospitals and stuff? Like, everyone thinks I'm not challenging them. I want to talk. I want to hear why they think they're doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, the whole goal is, like you said, we got to get everybody healthy, take accountability, and embrace it. Value yourself. Thank you again. It's always a pleasure. Marcus, let's go, buddy.
Great job.
Great job. Great job. Next week, people.